What's going on, wrestling fans? You are now tuned in to the Power Hour. I am Jeff Upson. I'm joined, as always, by Eric Knopsnyder. And Eric, was it snowing last week? I believe it was snowing last week after we got off the show.
It felt like wrestling season last week, right? And now it's, beautiful weather. But, man, what a weekend of wrestling, huh?
I mean, it was a great week. I mean, it did kind of with the snow outside. It was like, do I need to go to Hershey? Like, it's like, it just felt weird. And we did have a great weekend of wrestling. And for those of you who missed out, there was a lot of action going on between Virginia Beach and, of course, Wisconsin Dells when we talk about the Cadet World Team Trials. Virginia Beach, the National High School Coach Association, Senior Nationals, Junior Nationals, all the way through girls and junior high. That is an always well-attended event for Pennsylvania wrestlers. So, with COVID, I was kind of curious to see how many of our top wrestlers were going to be there. And there was a pretty good amount, Eric. When you look through the weights, there was a lot of top-tier wrestlers that made it down. Maybe not as much as we've seen in the years past, like the top of the line guys, but certainly a lot of good wrestlers.
Well, and I mean, there was just so much wrestling going on this weekend that I think it really kind of, you had to pick and choose, especially if you got families. You had the Tournament of Champions going on. You had cadets, as you said. You had Virginia Beach. I mean, it was just all over the place. So there were a lot of options for wrestling people. And as well as I do that a lot of times that gets difficult if you've got a son that's a junior in high school, and then somebody else that's younger that maybe is going to Ohio. Like, there are a couple different directions you could be pulled in there.
Yeah, and let's not forget there was qualifiers for the PAWF, right? The PAWF state tournament had some qualifiers. In fact, one of them was at the C3 Sports where we held our redemption duel. So, and then one was in Pittsburgh. So you had a lot of wrestlers that were trying to qualify for the PA Freestyle and Greco-Roman state tournament. So you're like you said, you kind of had different options to where you wanted to go, Eric.
Yeah, so that does maybe water some of them down a little bit, but still really good tournaments. I mean, you look at the names at Virginia Beach, and there's some really loaded weight classes there.
So surprisingly, we'll start with the freshman nationals. Surprisingly, no one from PA placed at 106 pounds, but man, 113, we had a slew of wrestlers. Mason Ziegler of Quakertown, who was a state medalist this year, he took third, had a great tournament. The other Mason that I was very impressed with was Mason Kiernan from Bethel Park. Now, his older brother, Hunter Kiernan, he wrestled for Bethel Park. He's now at Pitt. He had a really big win over Cooper Hornack from Burrell, who everyone knows is a state runner-up from Burrell this year at 106 pounds. Kiernan's a guy who, he had a good year, not a fantastic year, but it was a decent enough year. But for him to get that win over Hornack to get into the fifth place medal match was very impressive. So you had three guys from Pennsylvania all finished in the top 8 here at 113 pounds.
Yeah, and again, that shows kind of the depth there. All of them finishing up with wins to the tournament. Maybe not, that I'm sure Cooper Hornick would have been like to have been a little bit higher on the podium, and a couple of those guys would have been, but still pretty impressive for three to place and all to end the tournament on a high note.
120 pounds, we had Nick Jones of West Allegheny, another guy that was on our top incoming freshman report. Had a great year this year, to be honest. He did really well. I know he probably wished he would have made it to the state tournament than Hershey and gotten a state medal, but he took third in a pretty deep weight class. Blake Allmiller from Mifflin County also took 8th here at 120 pounds. And in fact, you're going to see another West Allegheny wrestler here. If they can get a couple, they have Devin Brown from, former Franklin Regional state champion. He's one of the assistants for the Gladiators Wrestling Club and helps out with West Allegheny there. You're going to see a lot of lightweights that just get exponentially better because of having him in that room.
You didn't get a West Virginia mention in there for Devin Brown?
I mean, I guess I could have. Yeah, I should have. Yeah, what WVU? I mean, yeah, of course, WVU guy. But yeah, that's the benefits that he brings to that room pretty big.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. To have a guy like that who's been through that and, was in a room like he was there. I mean, incredible resource for those guys to have and his experience to draw on.
At 126 pounds, Chase Formelli from Jefferson Morgan, he takes 8th place. No one at 132 or 138 or 145. However, 52 was stacked with PA wrestlers. Bodie Morgan of Trinity was probably the one that stood out the most, but there was quite a few here. Now let's look at the semifinals. The semifinals, you had Bodie Morgan from Trinity versus Ryan Garvik from Central Dauphin. These two have wrestled multiple times in PJWs. In fact, I believe they may have wrestled in a PJW state finals. I could be wrong on that. Garvik comes out, Bodie gets a takedown first, then Garvik gets a reversal. Ends up being 9-2 Bodie Morgan over Ryan Garvik, two top wrestlers in the state. Garvik's a guy who made it to the super regional. Bodie Morgan did not make it. He was in a pretty tough section and obviously district with the Whippio. But look at the consolation bracket, because there was a lot of guys here who wrestled back. Joey LaPena of Notre Dame Green Pond, who he and Garvik have wrestled, I think, multiple times in freestyle just these past couple weeks. He was there. Sean Taylor from West Allegheny also had a phenomenal tournament. He gets into the medal round match. Now, the one here who I'm a huge fan of, and that's Kevin Oliveria of Manhunt Township. We talked about him early in the year. He's from Puerto Rico, comes over to the United States, trains with the Law Wrestling Club out in Lancaster, attends Manheim Township High School. He beats Joey LaPena 9-0, beats Ryan Garvik 9-2, and then beats Sean Taylor 4-2 to take third. Sean Taylor, West Allegheny, good showing for him. But man, Kevin Oliveria he just went crazy. I mean, he really did just go off on a run. His only loss was to Zach Ryder from New York, who ended up winning the title. So really good showing here for Pennsylvania wrestlers.
Yeah, and you mentioned Oliveria there, Manheim Township. We talked before the season about the young studs that they have, and I mean that's just another one. We're going to be talking about another one a little bit later on in the show, but just amazing crop of guys that they've got coming up at Manheim Township.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be excited you look at, obviously we talked about Kaden and Camden, but there's so many other guys, and Kevin Oliveria, like, let's not forget, he drew Alejandro Herrera in the first round of the Super Region tournament. So, kind of a tough draw for him, but he battled throughout the year. He was right there with Bryce Buckman of Central Dauphin, beat him in the sectional tournament. So yeah, I'm excited for the future here at Manheim Township. Let's go up to 160 pounds, where we had Calvin Lockman take 6th place and Ryan Gallagher of Penridge take 8th place. We also had Roon Lawrence. Now this is where we this is where we get a little bit, you see the difference in freshmen that are on Roon's level and then not so much on Roon's level. He absolutely.
Are there other freshmen that are on Roon's level?
I haven't found them if they are, because I mean, there's you look at what he did in the weight class, and it was absolutely just, I mean, he toyed with the competition. You look at his results here. Okay, fall in a minute 07. It was 8-0 at the time of the fall. Next round, fall in a minute 49. It was 2-0 at the time. In the quarterfinals, he got a fall in 3:46. He was winning 12-1 at the time. Semifinals, fall in 58 seconds, winning 2-0. In the finals, he wins 2-0. But really, I think Landon Shutliff from Utah really didn't do a whole lot. He got called for stalling a couple times. Roon just, maybe he got tired of pinning people in the first and second period, so he let that one go to distance. But Roon is just, he's just toyed with these guys in this bracket.
Yeah, and we kind of, knew all year how good he was, or at least thought we knew how good he was, and then we got to see it at the end of the year. But yeah, and now it seems like, I don't know if we can say he's jumped levels, because he's facing freshmen here, and we saw what he was doing against seniors in Pennsylvania before. So maybe he's just been this good all along. It's just we really notice it whenever he's going up against his peers, as opposed to guys who are 3 years older than him.
Right. I mean, I just think back to Malachi Duval, and he's going to Navy. He's a Division I wrestler, and Roon beat him 3 weeks in a row, including the state finals, and freshman versus senior, and now, like you said, seeing him with his peers, it just changes the complete dynamic of it, because you're saying, man, he's dominating guys. So yeah, Roon Lawrence was one of a few champions here from Pennsylvania at the freshman nationals. Tucker Painter at 182. Now, again, we go back to Pennsylvania and how weird we are. We kept the 13 weight classes where the weight class is a little bit different. 189 is really the weight class that we have in Pennsylvania. Tucker Painter of Trinity. I would say he had a good, not great year for Trinity this year, but he comes out and gets a 12-3 win in the finals over Landon Williams at 182 pounds to win it. Liam Carroll also finishes 8th in this bracket. So, Tucker Painter, another District 3 guy, younger District 3 guy, I think he was 19-12 this year. So, again, good record as a freshman, but really came onto his own here at Virginia Beach.
Yeah, and I got to admit, I don't know too much about Tucker Painter. He was one that I looked at and I'm like, okay, not too sure about that, but you go down there and you win a title. That's impressive no matter what weight you're at, especially, a 182 as a freshman.
Yeah. So he bounced all around this year at weight classes. He was 19-13 this year. He wrestled 160 through 189. He made it to the super region, but didn't make it out of there. Was in a tough weight class. Bailey Gimber was there. Will Davis from Newport was there. Eli Crum from Bowling Springs. So, he had his share of battles there. So it's just kind of one of those things where maybe not Roon Lawrence level, but again, Tucker Painter, maybe he's at a weight class where much more comfortable for him at 182. It clearly worked out for him.
Height, if he was at 60 at some point in the year, that's a big jump going from 60 to 89.
Yeah, it's very big. So, and just looking at, I saw some pictures of him after winning and stuff. He looks pretty big. He looks like he fills out pretty big to 182. It's hard for me to believe that he was at 160 to end the season, to be honest with you. Aiden Height also took 7th at 195. Dante Burns from LaSalle College wins the title at 220 pounds. This one, it was an interesting weight class because Dante Burns was a guy who, he had a good year for LaSalle, but remember District 12 did not wrestle a whole lot of matches this year. So it was really hard to get a footing or get a judgment on him and where he was. But he had a great tournament here coming out on top, and 2 other Pennsylvania wrestlers also finished in the top 8.
Yeah, that's a pretty good showing by Burns. As you said, Mike fell and was placed 4th, and then Garrett Schaefer placed an 8th in that weight class.
Yeah, so Burns this year was, if we're calling the super region a state, call him a state qualifier, he made it to the state qualifier round of the super region. Again, had a good year, lost to Seth Hunsinger from Hazleton a couple times, got beat by Jason Henderson from Del Val. But, overall, again, only a handful of matches this year, 15-6, so 21 matches. Hard to really get a gauge on him. But I think the future's bright for him. Joe Collins took 6th at 285 pounds. So overall, Eric, impressions from the freshman class. Now, clearly we didn't see, all the freshmen that we've talked about, but a good amount of them were down there. What were your overall thoughts of the freshman nationals?
Pretty impressive. I think, the young guys is where we really saw Pennsylvania do well. We'll get into the sophomores here in a minute. But, 3 champs is pretty decent. Some depth in some weight classes. Like you said, some of the really big names weren't there that I'm sure could have won titles in this had they been here instead of at Cadet Nationals. But still a pretty solid showing. Roon Lawrence, I think, is the one that really jumps off the page at you in what he was able to do there in that dominant fashion.
Yeah, for sure. Kind of like what we're going to talk about in the juniors when we talk about Nick Feldman, just absolutely dominating. Roon Lawrence was kind of the story of the sophomore nationals for Pennsylvania. Let's go up to the sophomore division, and let's start right off the bat at 106 pounds. Carson Wagner, who we got to see at the Redemption Duel, he took 2nd at 106 pounds, lost to Brady Rorak from Missouri. Also, Luke Soriano I want to say Soriano every time I see his name. Serini of Abington Heights, he took 6th. Hunter Sloan of Germantown Academy, he took 7th. Interesting tidbit here with the national prep guys are, this was almost like a regional tournament for them because they're wrestling in national preps this weekend. Carson Wagner, we saw him at Redemption, had a good match with Hunter Robeson. Both these guys came into the state tournament ranked number 1 in the state. But Carson Wagner was one of 2 Northampton wrestlers to finish 2nd at the sophomore nationals.
Yeah, good showing there. A 2nd place finish for him is pretty solid. And then, as you said, the sixth and the seventh. So a pretty strong weight class there for Pennsylvania with 3 place winners in the 106 category.
Much like 113 at the freshman with Mason Kiernan having a good round, there was a wrestler from the Whitfield here from Pine Richland, Anthony Ferraro, who had an absolutely phenomenal tournament here. And let's just look back at what he did. He beat Chase Burke from Benton 11-0. He beats Tyler Chappell 4-0. Goes very far with Zach Jacaruso, loses to him 4-3 to take fourth place. So a couple things here. Anthony Ferraro is a guy who, he had a good year this year. Again, good. Probably could have finished a little bit higher than he wanted to, but certainly wasn't in the state finals like Zach Jacaruso or one of the top guys at 106 like Tyler Chappell. Ferraro had a great tournament here in Virginia Beach. Jacaruso, if you go back and watch that match, he beat Tyler Chappell in ultimate tiebreaker 7-6. I encourage you to go back and watch that match. And then, of course, he beats Ferraro to take third. So state runner-up, another guy who we got to see at the Redemption Duel. He wrestled Cohen Bainey, beat him. Zach Jacaruso, is this guy going to be a name that we're going to, it's not going to go away anytime soon, Eric?
No, and I'll be the first to admit I kind of doubted him after the state tournament. We saw the Kilcary match, where it was he won, but it was kind of a strange match where there were a lot of stoppages, and I questioned the gas tank, but then comes out at the Redemption and looks great there. Goes down here, gets a third place finish here. I mean, I think Jacaruso is definitely somebody that has said, hey, look, I'm on the scene and I'm going to be here for a couple years.
Yeah, only a sophomore, so I'm excited to see what he's able to do the rest of the way. Again, at 113 pounds, we had Tyler Chappell. He took 6. Charlie Bunting from Nazareth, a state medalist. So you had 3 state medalists here. Jacaruso, Chappell, and Bunting all finished in the top 8. And, of course...
And Ferraro finished ahead of 2 of them.
And Ferraro finished ahead of 2 of them, right, which is very impressive. You had other guys like Tommy Link here, Caden Milham from Warrior Run, guys that we have seen, all year this year that looked really good. I was impressed with the guys that did finish here, especially Anthony Ferraro. Let's go up to 120 pounds where Jaden Pepe of Wyoming area, he finishes 4th. Now, he was a state champion this year. Of course, he wrestled Gavin Bradley, feels like 20 times this year, but took 4th here. Luke Poor from Delaware won it. Not really too sure about Joel Brown or Luke Poor, who finished 1st and 2nd. Ethan Lieben from Hempfield area, he took 6th. At 120 pounds. Kind of surprised to see him down at 120 still, but good showing for him. Eric, Jaden Pepe, you think PA state champion? I don't know. I guess I kind of expected him to be in the top 2.
Yeah, and we tend to think that, but credit to other states there. We've talked about it many times before. I think what separates Pennsylvania is our depth. But at times, a Pennsylvania state champ can lose to a guy from another state. It's certainly not unheard of. I would have thought going in, I would agree with you that I would think that Pepe is probably going to be in the final there. But all credit to Brown, Joel Brown of Maryland, who knocked him off there and was able to get into the final himself.
Yeah, I mean, I know this is PA Power, but it's like other people actually do wrestle and they're okay at wrestling. I know it's hard to believe, but it's true. You go up to 126 pounds. Your boy Spencer Barnhart takes 3rd place here from Malvern Prep. He beats David Cross in the 3rd place match. It's interesting because the guy who won it has ties to Pennsylvania. Elhai Rivera from Florida, he wrestles at Lake Highland Prep. He and his brother. His brother was actually on the top incoming freshman this year. Barnhart takes 3rd. Matt Repost from Central Dolphin takes 7th. Ethan Kolb from Benton takes 8th. And Matt Repost really took it to him in the 7th place match, beating him 12-0. So Spencer Barnhart, what do you think, Eric? Is he going to win a national prep championship this weekend?
I love Spencer Barnhart. I hope he does. And I can't say that I know what the rest of it looks like, but Spencer Barnhart is an intimidating guy when you look at him at 126 pounds. The way he's built, he's a really quality kid that we were able to see a couple times this year, and excited to see what he can do at national preps.
Yeah, and his only loss here in Virginia Beach was to eventual champion Elijah Rivera from Lake Highland Prep. Again, Pennsylvania ties in the Stroudsburg area. They were in ultimate tiebreaker. It was 2-2, and he lost by fall. So Spencer Barnhart then beats Matt Repost 2-1 in ultimate tiebreaker. So a couple really good wins for him. And as you said, this is kind of like a preemptive to his national prep tournament run. So
Now, is dumb question. Is Lake Highland Prep, is that a prep school?
yeah, so I don't think so. The national prep tournament this year is not going to be a traditional, but the answer is no. But they're not in national preps, but you're not going to potentially see all the national prep schools at
Right.
It's not really a national prep sanctioned tournament. So we're probably not going to see maybe not the full contingent. I don't know. As long as Blair and Sem are there, though, it's going to be good.
That's
wrestling.
all that matters.
Right,
well,
right.
and Malvern.
And
Let's
Malvern.
not forget Malvern.
Well, of course, Malvern. How can we not? Nate Lauder's probably going to text me in like 3 seconds saying, "Stop disrespecting the Friars." I'm sorry, Nate.
He's
All
gonna
right.
send Feldman after you. You better watch out.
You're better. You're right. Between him and between Feldman and Barnhart, I don't know who I go after first. Because they're both like the same person. I don't know. 132 pounds. Nathan Roth. He takes 6th place here. Injury forfeits, medical forfeits in that 5th place match. I hope he's okay because we've seen him this year face some injuries, but his freshman year ended on an injury. And, again, I hate to say it. I feel like the Nate Roth pre-injury his freshman year, I don't know if we've seen that Nate Roth yet because he was on a roll. And then, I don't know if it's the injury or what, but I don't think we've quite seen the peak of Nate Roth just yet.
Nate Roth just feels like he's a guy that's just snake bit, there's something that always kind of doesn't go right for him that kind of limits how far he can go. We've seen some hard luck for him before. So hopefully, yeah, he's okay. And this was just something that he was a little banged up and nothing too serious.
Right. I mean, you're beating Jace Ross from Collinsville in the regional tournament, end up injury defaulting. Jace Ross ends up going and placing top 8 in the state tournament. So I'm sure there's snake bit's a good way to say that, Eric. 138 pounds, Andrew Harmon from Becca. He takes 5th. On 145 pounds, another District 11, another Northampton wrestler, Dagan Condomiti, younger brother of Jagger. He loses 2-1 to Jeremiah Price from North Carolina in the finals at 145 pounds to take 2nd, joining Carson Wagner at 106 pounds. Also, Tyler Barish of Beth Center, he takes 8th at 145. So, Condomiti, I love seeing him wrestle. Ever since he took Wyatt Henson to the brink, it's like, he's got potential. It reminds me of when Jagger beat Ryan Anderson, and it's like all of a sudden Ryan was on or Jagger was on the cover of Flow, and
he's on everybody's radar. He's
right.
headed to Nebraska,
right.
Yeah,
and Dagan, I think he's right there, right? So finishing 2nd here, I'm sure he's disappointed, but still a lot to gain from that.
Yeah, and one thing that you mentioned there that I like seeing is a Tyler Barish in there, a Beth Center kid. We had a Jefferson Morgan kid earlier. Me, I love the AA schools, and I love seeing these schools that maybe aren't the most power. I mean, Beth Center is really good. Don't get me wrong, but I think it's probably been a while since we've seen a Beth Center kid placing it at a tournament like this. So it's good to see those results and to see some of these schools that maybe aren't the ones that we talk about all the time in AA, to see some of these other schools getting some guys to these summer tournaments and placing. And I think that's good for the sport whenever we see those Jefferson Morgans and Beth Centers and, some schools that aren't the traditional powerhouse names that we're used to. And they're going here and they're doing well.
Yeah, I mean, it's you obviously like to see, balance, right? You like to see other schools. You don't want to see the Yankees win, every year. And I read something today about, because there's rumors that the Deans are going to Penn State. And I read somewhere, it's like, if you're not Iowa or Penn State, it's like, why bother? They're just getting everybody, and they're kind of like have a monopoly. I'm like, I mean, you still have like NC State, you still have Minnesota, you still have guys that are still competing, but I kind of get what you're saying. It's nice to see the balance and see some other wrestlers from across the state and across different classifications as well, wrestling well. 152 pounds, Michael Dugan of Bowling Springs, he takes third. He was a state medalist this year. Landon Muth from Becca, he takes eighth at 152. So again, a couple Becca guys here that we've seen finish in the top 8. 195. So we skipped 170 and 182 because we didn't have one from Pennsylvania there. But
Whoa,
if you would have,
whoa.
What's up? Did I forget one?
What about 182? Matt Furman.
Oh shoot! Oh my, sorry.
Come on, his mom's our super fan.
Rachel's
Come on,
she's
Jeff.
not gonna be happy with me.
You can't do Matt Furman like that.
Listen, I'm sorry. I had it highlighted, and for some reason it's no longer highlighted, so I missed it. Matt Furman took 5th.
Right, Matt Furman's calling.
Rachel's.
No,
I apologize. I'm more worried about his mother because she would attack me. Yeah, there she is. She's already commenting. She's already commenting saying, "What are you doing?" I apologize, Rachel. Matt Furman takes 5th. In fact, I saw it on social media before I went back and actually saw the results. So, Matt Furman, he takes 5th at 182. What I was gonna say was that, Sonny Sasso, I was almost expecting him to be at 170 or 182, but instead he pops up at he pops up 195. I'm like, what did you eat, Sammy, or what? Like, what's going on here? But yes, Matt Furman takes 5th in a pretty deep 182-pound bracket. And then Sonny Sasso follows that up at 195 with a championship title, which is, again, impressive for a number of reasons. One is because he's up to 195, but also, Sonny's, I don't know. It's got to be hard to be the younger brother of a guy like I kind of look at it like Jack Pletcher and Luke Pletcher, Sonny Sasso and Sammy Sasso. Those guys are big brothers, but also big kind of auras about shadows, yeah. Right? Yeah, I mean, so like
they cast a big shadow.
Sure,
oh, absolutely, yeah.
So like the fact that Sonny's out there grinding, Jack Pletcher, we saw that he had a good weekend. Beating Grant McKay in the freestyle qualifier state finals, I love to see that. So, Sonny Sasso wins it, but he wasn't the only wrestler here from Pennsylvania. In fact, Jacob Scheib from Tri-Valley took 4th. Corey Barrero from Greater Latrobe takes 5th, and Eli Mackel of Waynesburg takes 7th. In fact, Corey Barrero and Mackel are wrestling on the Stand Your Ground card. So five wrestlers there. I'm sorry, 4. I can't count, I can't read either. 4 wrestlers from Pennsylvania. So 50% of the medalists all from Pennsylvania at 182 pounds.
195. Yeah. That's great to see. As you said, Sasso with a strong performance there. Surprised me definitely seeing him 195. And then Scheib, I don't know too much about Jacob. I'm assuming that's probably Danny's brother.
I was going to say, you don't know Danny?
Yeah, I know Danny. Yeah. I remember Danny. But I assume that's a younger brother there. And then Borio and Makel, as you said, 4 guys in the top 8 is pretty impressive at 195.
You go up to 220 pounds, Zach Evans from Chambersburg. He took 6th. And then our second champion, I can't count. I'm sorry. I haven't been sleeping much, Eric, okay? Right before the show, I'm looking at the phone. I'm watching, my son on the camera. And I'm like, oh, God, he's crying. Eric, give me a second. I got to run upstairs, and I got to get him real quick. So you got to, I can't use this excuse forever, but I'm going to use it while I can. 285.
Yeah, get the most out of it. It's all right.
I got to do it. Riley Robel from Bishop McDevitt, who we also got to see at the Redemption Duel, beat Billy McChesney up there. He had a rematch with Emmanuel Ulrich from Mifflinburg. Now, these two wrestled in the state semifinals this year. In that match, Riley Robel was up, I believe, 5-0, and then he pinned Ulrich. This time around, it was 1-0 in the Virginia Beach finals. Not a whole lot of action. Ulrich took neutral in the second period, which was a little bit surprising, but maybe not because you got pinned by him in the state semifinals. Robel, of course, goes on to the state finals, loses to Nate Taylor. Ulrich, though, had a great tournament, losing to Robel in the finals. It was Riley who got the escape to win it 1-0. Also, William Brosco from Haverford, he took 3rd here at 285. An interesting one here because he was actually at Marpole Newtown in District 1, was a state qualifier, transfers over to Haverford School and gets reclassified as a freshman. So now he's, I guess, and technically he probably could have been a junior, right? But that's the way it is in preps. Like you see a lot of guys, Malvern Prep, you see that a lot with guys that reclassify. Caden Rogers is one of them. Colton Deary is another one that reclassify. And hey, I don't really have a problem with that. But yeah, Riley Robel, really good showing here for him.
Yeah, and just Pennsylvania as a whole, they're going 1-2. Was it 1-2-3, right?
Yeah, 1-2-3.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty impressive. 1-2-3 at heavyweight.
Yeah, especially for Pennsylvania, where we don't always see the heavyweight. Shout out to Brandon Furman, though. Okay, there you go, Rachel. Shouting out.
Oh, now you got it.
There we go. The pride
back in the good graces.
I'm back in the good graces because we got some good heavyweights, including your son. Let's go to the junior division where it starts thinning out a little bit, right? Freshmen, sophomore nationals always tend to do a little bit better in drawing numbers. Juniors and seniors, maybe not so much. So the first medalist from Pennsylvania at the junior division was at 120 pounds, and we had 3 of them. Mason Leaphart from Dover took 4th. Dylan Coy from North Allegheny takes 5th. And Xander Fatoris of Waynesburg takes 7th. Mason Leaphart and Dylan Coy had a rematch of the Super Region. And again, this time around, it was Mason Leaphart who won it. Of course, Dylan Coy, let's not forget, he came out of District 7 as the champion. He beat Mac Church, who was the eventual state champion, in the regional finals, goes to Super Region, and just does not have a great tournament, losing to Mason Leaphart. Mason Leaphart does it again here in Virginia Beach. He takes 4th. Dylan is 5th. And Xander Fatoris, who we saw at 126 for most of the year, he's now at 120. So, you got to look and say, man, could he have, had he been at 120 as opposed to 126, where would he have been potentially? But good showing here at 120.
Yeah, and with Faturis, we kind of talked, multiple times about Waynesburg and how amazing it was that they were able to slot in their best guys at every weight. But now we see maybe that wasn't Faturis' natural weight, but that's just where he was able to fit into the lineup for him. So yeah, that's interesting to see him there. And again, as you said, good depth there. 3 place winners at 120, pretty solid showing.
Another Waynesburg wrestler placed at 132 pounds. That was Colton Stoneking, a state medalist this year. He took 7th. Kind of surprising. I mean, I feel like Stoneking now, like he used to be the guy that, wasn't as talked about as much, but I feel like he's now somebody that gets a lot of mentions. I'm not saying I was expecting more out of him, but I kind of was surprised when he wasn't like top 4. Maybe that's just, I don't know, maybe that's too much pressure on the Waynesburg wrestlers here, but I thought Colton would have finished higher than 7th, especially after how good of a Super 32 he had earlier this year. So, but maybe that's just my Waynesburg bias, right?
I mean, I would guess that he's probably thinking he should have been a little higher too. Everybody always thinks that, and it pretty good weight class there at 132. But yeah, I would think that he and those around him would have liked to have seen him, in the top 4 probably.
So if you go up to 138, we can't claim him. Kelvin Griffin goes to the Hill School, but he's from Maine. I can't claim him. That's like us claiming Nick Bazakis.
He's getting an asterisk.
I mean, it's just not fair, right? It's not fair, especially to a state like Maine. In fact, there's 2 Maine wrestlers that are at the Hill School that both did really well here. So I can't take that away from Maine. Maine's they're basically Canada. I mean, we can't really take much from them, in terms of pride. So I'm going to let Maine have that for Kelvin Griffin winning, 138 pounds. 145, another Waynesburg wrestler. Again, I don't want to use the word disappointed, because I'm never disappointed in Cole Hamet. I look, and maybe it's like Jaden Pepe, where you say he's a state finalist in PA. I think he should be in the finals, right? Cole Hamet takes 8th, but he's also up at 145, and I know he was battling some illness a little bit towards the end of the year, so maybe it's a weight, maybe it's just getting back into shape, but Cole Hamet does take 8th here at 145. Eric, am I being unfair to some of those wrestlers?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we're obviously supporters of Pennsylvania wrestling, and we're never going to criticize a kid for a performance, anything like that. But at the same time, you've set a standard, and it's good to be held to that standard. I don't think we're being too hard on kids that we think are really good and we expect them to perform well. And, we're not being hard on them that they maybe didn't perform that way. But, we can be honest about it and say, yeah, we thought they would have done a little better there.
Right.
And as I said, I'm sure Cole Hamet would be the first to tell you that he would have expected a little more out of himself there.
True. No, you're right. I mean, Pennsylvania is wrestling. So when we look at it, and with a guy like Cole Hamet, who I consider one of the top of his class, right? I mean, he's a 3-time state medalist. He was a state finalist this year, had beaten the state champion, this year as well. I expect them to perform really, really well at tournaments such as this. So again, maybe
and I think with wrestling, the wrestling community's tough enough that they're not going to be like, oh, I can't believe you said my kid didn't, was a little disappointing to finish 8th as opposed to, top 3
right.
where you expected to. Wrestlers are like, yeah. Your mom's like, come on, man, you should have been in the top 3. What's the matter?
You're right. They're most of the time the wrestlers are harder than themselves anyway. So
yeah, absolutely. So no, we're not being
I don't
hard
feel bad
on
at
Cole.
all. I take that back. Cole, you're still my boy.
Placing there's good. But yeah, we know that he's good enough to be a little higher on the podium than that.
Totally agree. 152 pounds, Sam Beckett of the Hill School. He's a former Souderton wrestler. He took 8th at 152 pounds. Also taking 8th at 160 pounds was Chase Krantz of Norwin. State medalist this year, had a great season. He took 8th at 160 pounds. You look at the rest of the way here, it started to thin out because we didn't have anyone at 170. I'm like double checking now because I feel like I'm going to miss somebody. 170, 182, we definitely didn't have anyone from Pennsylvania. 195, we had Chase Levy of Nazareth. Kind of interesting story with Chase Levy because he didn't really he's been in and out of the lineup at Nazareth. Of course, you had Drew Cleary there, Sonny Sasso. You had a lot of tough guys kind of in that weight class. He didn't wrestle all of last year, I believe. So Chase Levy still wrestling, finishes 8th here at 195. And then, of course, the man, the myth, the legend, the larger version of Spencer Barnhart. Spencer Barnhart's no longer the smaller version of Nick Feldman. Nick Feldman's the larger version of Spencer Barnhart. He wins it at 220. He's going to Ohio State. He's probably going to win another national prep title. Pound for pound, is he the best in Pennsylvania right now, Eric?
Boy, it's hard to argue against. I mean, like when for me, when I see what he's done to Dayton Pitzer, who, Dayton Pitzer dominates everybody else that he wrestles, and to see, what Nick Feldman was able to do with him, it's like, man, that's a big gap.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the reason why I tend to say he is because we didn't see Ryan Crookham at all this year, right? And Ryan Crookham, let's not forget what he did in that bracket with guys like Jackson Arrington and Levi Haynes.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, so Levi Haynes, of course, a world team member now, Jackson Arrington, an NC State recruit, one of the most dominating wrestlers of last year. Ryan Crookham,
I'd say both of those guys would be pound for pound, near the top.
Right.
And
so,
you're right. You're right. Ryan Crookham.
So but it's that curse of not being able to see him this year. Right. So like the fact that we didn't get to see him, maybe it goes towards the back of our brain a little bit when in fact we saw Nick Feldman beat Dayton Pitzer multiple times this year. And we've seen Dayton Pitzer just go bananas on people and just dominate. So it's like, it's so weird to kind of gauge where they're at. But Nick Feldman.
And again, I mean, we talked about it before. Pitzer was hurt a little bit by the weight change as well, that, he wasn't at his ideal weight there. Had we not changed the weight classes, he'd probably would have been better off. But,
True.
Still just a dominant showing by him throughout the season.
So Nick Feldman at the National High School Coach Association Junior Nationals dominated. So tech fall. Now look at this. I mean, tech falls are one thing, right? And I had a teammate, Walter Peppelman, who used to tech fall people in the first period all the time because he just has a tilt and a tilt and a tilt. It was just insane. Nick Feldman, he's tech falling people in the first period at 220 pounds. First match, tech fall 21-5 in 2 minutes. Second match, 19-4 tech fall in 1:50. Then in the quarterfinals, you're gonna have to help me with his last name, Eric. I know who he is. He's a state champ from Ohio. He's not bad. Austin Kohlhofer.
Right.
Okay,
yep.
We'll go there. 13-6 decision. I mean, I watched this match. Feldman dominated the match. All of Kohlhofer's points were off of escapes. It just so happened that Feldman wasn't able to get to his attacks quite like he had in the first 2 rounds. But then semifinals, 16-2 major decision. And then, the finals, we're going to have a 1:41 tech fall 16-1. Are you kidding me? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, Eli Fortuner from Virginia in the finals there, not so fortunate.
Oh, good one. I like that, Eric. If I had one of those like drums, like pa pa pa, I would do that right now. But I'm not one of those weirdo podcasters. So good job by Nick
We don't
Feldman.
need the sound effects.
We don't need to talk much more about Nick Feldman because he just is really good at wrestling. Matt Cruz of Easton, he takes 7th at 285. Was a state qualifier last year, state medals this year. So good showing for him. Seniors, unfortunately, we don't have a whole lot to talk about. Owen Woolcott from State College, good performance from him at 126. He takes 7th. Christian Coleman from Germantown Academy, he's going to Duke. Another guy, national prep guy who we've seen come up through the PA ranks, beats Dylan Chappell in the 3rd place match 3-2. Of course, Dylan Chappell, 3-time state finalist. Coleman, hey, I think Duke's got a good one here because he had a really good tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good win there, as you said, over Chappell. And as you mentioned a little bit there, we don't traditionally have a big contingency going to senior nationals, and I think that's just kind of the way that Pennsylvania looks at things. At this point, most of our guys that we know are really good are committed to colleges and aren't necessarily so concerned with going in and try to prove themselves at a tournament like this, where you see a lot of other states are still going really hard at it in the senior division. With us, it's kind of like, okay, we're going to do a little freestyle. We're going to rest up a little bit. We're going to head off to college, get some courses done, handle some other things rather than necessarily going to Virginia Beach at this point.
Yeah, no, you're right. And that's another product of being from Pennsylvania and having a lot of those commitments already out of the way. And some of them are still, in the process of committing. Shout out Sammy Starr, wrestled in Redemption. He recently committed to Navy. So really, congrats to him. 152 pounds, Connor Eck from Bensalem. He took 8th. Also, you had Isaiah Reinhardt from Easton take 6th at 182 pounds. And Luke Duthie from Wyoming Seminary, he took 2nd at 195. Again, a lot of these national prep guys wanted to wrestle to get them ready for the this coming weekend. Nate Miller from Peckway Valley, a former Wyoming Seminary wrestler, now back at Peckway Valley, younger brother of Gabe Miller, who's now at Penn. He took 8th at 285. Eric, that's the National High School Coaches Association, but we still had middle school and girls division. Eric, tell us what happened in the middle school division here with Team Pennsylvania.
Okay, we'll give you a quick rundown here of the champs in the middle school division from Pennsylvania. 105 pounds, we had Tahir Parkins of East Stroudsburg winning it there. 127, Colin Gage of Quakertown. 142, Charlie Scanlon of Bethlehem. And again, these are towns, so I'm not sure, if he's a Becca kid. I'm not sure exactly what that is when I see Bethlehem there. Being middle school, not quite sure which schools they're at. So he's there. Braden Welsh, first at 154 pounds. He's got a Washington address, which I'm guessing is probably a relative of Rocco there.
Yes. There's a lot of Welshes down there in Beth Center.
Yeah, and then one that we definitely know is a relative, 165, Vaughn Spencer of Pine Richland, younger brother of Cole Spencer. He wins it there at 165 pounds. So what do we have? 5 champs there in the middle school division. Pretty well represented there with that total. And so decent showing there. Wouldn't you say so?
Oh, my gosh, yeah. I would. I mean, I was very impressed. And to hear Parkins is a guy who I feel like has been on the scene for such a long time, and I can remember seeing pictures of him winning Reno and winning younger tournaments.
Back when Reno was Reno.
Yeah, back when Reno was at Reno, right? And Tulsa was in Tulsa. He's been wrestling at a high level for a very long time. I'm not sure where he's going to end up going in high school. He's a Dark Knights wrestler. So I'm not really sure where he'll end up and land in high school. But, yeah, he had a great tournament. Of course, we talked about Vaughn Spencer, how good he's looked in the PJW state, or I'm sorry, the Keystone State Finals and throughout his career. So, yeah, I think the future is bright here for Pennsylvania. What about the girls division? Because I know Montana DeLauder was there. Please tell me she won this tournament.
She did. 120 pounds. That's your girl, your champion, Montana DeLauder of Gettysburg. Another impressive performance out of her. We've talked about her many times and all her accomplishments. So congrats to Montana our lone girls champ there at Virginia Beach.
Yeah, and there was a couple. Her teammate there, Aurelia Santoya from Gettysburg, took sixth at 160. So again, of course, I love how you leave that to me to pronounce because, I
That's
can't.
the fun of the show, Jeff.
Yeah, I know you get a kick out of that. But yes, there was. I was very happy to see Montana, which I looked at the updated girls rankings, and they still have her number 2 in the nation behind Adrena Turner. So maybe they need to go back and watch the Pittsburgh Wrestling Classic match. But I don't know. Maybe I'm not sure they're in shade or anything. I'm just saying.
Nah, to be devil's advocate here, though, I think the folk style made a big difference there.
Yeah. So okay. All right.
They don't wrestle folk style anywhere else.
Okay. Touche. But I still don't agree with it.
It's like saying, all right, we're going to make Jordan Burroughs wrestle Greco and see how he does.
Okay, that's not Greco to. Okay, no, you're not taking me down that path because I will argue that to the. You can't say freestyle and Greco between freestyle and folk style.
This girl has never had to wrestle off the bottom in her life, and you're telling her, okay, now you got to do it.
All right, let's leave it there, because we still got World Team Trials. We still got freestyle and Greco to talk about. So let's go to
World Team members.
World Team members. We've got several of them.
USA Wrestling's Athlete of the Week.
USA Wrestling's Athlete of the Week is, drum roll, who is it, Eric?
Bo Bassett.
Bo Bassett. Of course it's Bo Bassett. Bo Bassett doubles up, wins the Cadet freestyle World Team Trials, but also doubles up and does Greco as well. Eric, first
for the heck of it,
were you surprised that he did as well as he did in Greco-Roman, or were you not so surprised?
I am and I'm not, because I've seen Bo Bassett for the past 8 years. I know what he's capable of. I know how good he is, probably more so than most of the rest of the nation did before this weekend. So it doesn't surprise me. What does surprise me is the guy that he dominated in the finals was kind of a Greco specialist almost. Whenever he dominated like that, and then he ended up facing the same kid again in the freestyle finals. So it's not like Mauger is completely a Greco specialist. He's obviously a really good wrestler in his own right. But whenever Bo Bassett beat him, I think it was 8-0 and pinned him in the Greco finals, I'm like, well, this freestyle thing, I don't think that's going to work out too well for him, because Bo's, that's more his specialty. I think if you ask Bo, freestyle is his best style, better than folk style, definitely better than Greco. Freestyle is where he wants to be.
Right. Yeah. So he wins it 7-1 in the first round, 11-2 and by fall. So yeah, I mean he dominated.
Yeah, the first one was a pin too, right? He didn't go 4 minutes with anybody.
No, you're right. He didn't.
Yeah, he had 7 techs and 2 pins on the weekend.
You're right. He did. But he's not the only one. Kaden Williams from Manheim Township had a great tournament. And, Kaden and Camden have wrestled in all of the youth tournaments in both freestyle and Greco-Roman. But again, you just kind of say, well, at this level, it's like, you got to be pretty committed to Greco, in my opinion, to make a world team. Kaden Williams does that. He wins 11-9 over Tragan Morin. He beats him 11-9, then loses to him in a wild match 14-11. In the third and final decisive match, he beats him 9-4 to make a Cadet world team in Greco-Roman. He was a state champion this year at 106. He's wrestling 51 kilos in Cadets. Very impressed by him as well, Eric.
Yeah, and I'll be the first to admit I didn't really know, what Kaden Williams was going to be like in Greco. And that really impressed me to see him go out there and win a Greco title and get on that team. And then, kind of say, okay, not going to worry about freestyle. We've got the Greco title in the bag. We're headed to Budapest.
Yeah. I mean, I would be lying if I said I wasn't slightly, I kind of wanted to see him in freestyle, because I'm thinking, here he's going to double up and do what Bo Bassett did. Because I think in reality, he would have been in the mix, but that's how many days you got to weigh in. You're made a world team.
That's the big part. That's one of the real tough things, is that Greco was Friday, and then you had the 2-day freestyle tournament. So you got to make scratch weight 3 days in a row. Yeah. And this isn't the summer wrestling where you're like, well, I'll show up and see what I weigh and decide on my weight class then. I mean, this is one of the toughest tournaments anywhere.
Yeah.
And so these guys are really cutting to get down to their optimal weight. And to do that 3 days in a row is not easy by any stretch.
No, not at all. And if you were to tell me PA was going to have the same amount of wrestlers on the world team in freestyle as Greco-Roman, I'd probably say you're crazy. But that's what it is, right? So
yeah,
it is what it is.
And again,
right?
you know, it's just a simple matter where there are a lot of good wrestlers in the U.S.
Yeah.
You know, and we like to think we have a better amount of them here than anywhere else.
But we do.
The simple fact is there are a lot of really good wrestlers in the U.S. and we still had more than Iowa. So, you know.
Yeah,
we
got
that
Dyson.
in our favorite Dyson. Yeah.
Dyson, you're fired. You know, you're fired.
Wow.
You're fired. You're fired, you know.
No, you're not, Dyson.
All right, you're not
We
fired.
love you, Dyson.
But seriously, like, get off of Iowa. It's
yeah.
Now, at this point, it's just dumb. Greco-Roman, 2 wrestlers going to Budapest from Pennsylvania in freestyle. As we talked about, Bo Bassett, he gets a tech in 50 seconds, a fall in a minute 38. Yeah, tech fall in 1 minute 38, and then tech in 3:04 to make it to the finals, where again he wrestled Mauger. You know, that I would say Mauger was. I'd say he wrestled him at least in the last match, you know, because Bassett teched him 10-0 in the first one. Second match, you know, he hung in there with him. So, but man, it's hard to. Bo Bassett's winning a world title. I'm just saying that. You know, I just think that's going to happen. I can't see how anyone stops him. He's just looked that good, and that's probably why he won the USA Wrestling Athlete of the Week.
Yeah, I mean, he was incredible, and as I said, he's a kid that, you know, being in my backyard, I've been following him since he was 8, 9 years old. So it's really kind of cool to see, especially like wrestling Twitter, just all of a sudden explode in the Bo Bassett love. And they've all just kind of like, wow, this kid's incredible. I'm like, yeah, he's been that way. Like,
yeah, yes.
He's good at wrestling.
Yeah, no, he really is. And I think the world is really going to start finding out about that. And, you know, he's in 7th grade, right? So he's got a lot of wrestling ahead of him. 48 pounds.
Well, and that's the thing. Like he actually could have been in the under 15 tournament.
Yes.
Right. You know, he was sort of wrestling up here in Cadet.
Yeah.
You know, he could have said, okay, yeah, I'm just going to go and dominate U15 and go to Pan Ams. But he's like, no, I want to go to Greco, or I want to go to Cadet and win Greco and freestyle.
Because why wouldn't he, right? I mean, look at what he was able to do, and you know, I love it, and I think that's going to show when he goes to Budapest. 48 kilograms. A guy who we saw wrestle Bo Bassett in True Power was Nathan Desmond of Becca, Redhawk Wrestling Club. I thought he had a great tournament, because I wasn't necessarily sure what to expect with him. You know, unlike Bo Bassett, it was like, okay, I think he can be in the mix, and I think we said that. We thought Sam Herring was in the mix as well. But Nathan Desmond makes it to the best of 3 finals. I thought he looked really, really good in that process. And I still thought he looked good in the finals, the best of 2, but he just was unable to get past Luke Littlehall. Is that how you say it? Littlehall?
Little Doll.
Little he's Sammy Henson's boy. He's bull trained. But he beat him 8-5. He beat Desmond 8-5. Desmond was up 4-2 after the first period. And then he gets a 4 and a 2 to end it. 8-5 against Desmond. The next match he loses 3-0. So, but Nathan Desmond, I mean, again, another young star from Becca coming up through the ranks. I was impressed with him to get to that best of 3 finals.
Yeah, and like you said, I thought, especially in the first one, I don't recall the second one as much, but the first one, I thought he was right there in it, and he had a chance to win that match and just couldn't quite finish it off there. So, yeah, impressive showing by him. And did want to give a quick shout out. You mentioned Sam Herring, who actually placed 5th, a spot ahead of Desmond and Greco. So Sam Herring was a kid that I don't know if you saw him at during the redemption duel. He actually was in a walking boot then. So the fact that he was able to get the boot off and 2 weeks later place in the Cadet Nationals, I thought was pretty darn impressive.
I'd say that's really darn impressive. You know, so shout out to Sam Herring, and you know, we know he's got a bright future ahead of him at Bishop McCourt. If you go up to 51 kilograms, this is where we thought we may have Vinny Kilkeary, but he had to pull out with an injury. But Dalton Perry from Central Maryland, also a young wrestler who's in 8th grade this year. He's going to be one of the top incoming freshmen next year. He wrestled Jess Aruga, who they've wrestled the week prior at the Ultimate Club Duels. Jess Aruga, who is Dyson's boy, loses to him 4-1. Then he wrestles Mark Anthony McGowan, a world champion, in the 3rd and 4th place match because, McGowan loses to Jess Aruga in a crazy match. This was a deep weight class, and Perry came out 4th. So good showing for him.
Yeah, I think that's really encouraging. Dalton Perry. Again, I'm sure if you talk to Dalton Perry, he thinks he could have been in the finals, could have been a champion, and he's extremely good. I think the future is really bright for him. But that was just an incredible weight class that he was in there.
If we go up to 55 kilograms, this is where, and again, I don't want to use the word disappointment, but we were just excited because we wanted to see Mason Gibson on a world team. He brings energy and excitement everywhere he goes. He certainly would bring it to Budapest. Mason,
he may bring it to Budapest without even being there.
He very well may. You're right.
He's probably going to be texting me while I'm there.
He may be there. I don't know. He may be there with Bo. He could be there. He had a tough tournament. But what I liked about what Mason did was he finished on top. He finished strong. He avenges that loss that he had to Cale Hughes of Oklahoma, which was not a pretty loss, right? Cale Hughes had a game plan and he executed. Beat Mason Gibson 11-3. And you come back and then he beats him in a 3rd and 4th place match. He beats him 8-0. So really good rebound for Mason Gibson despite not making it to the world team.
Yeah, and I love Mason. He's a great kid, great wrestler. But this is where I got to give him a little tough love. Like, we talked to him a little bit beforehand. We asked him how his freestyle game was, how his top game was. And for me, that was the difference, that Mason Gibson is still a really good folk style wrestler, but he's a really good freestyle wrestler also. Taking 3rd is nothing to sneeze at. I mean, it's a really good performance, but I don't know that I don't think I saw one turn out of him this weekend. It was all takedowns.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
He didn't have that top game that separates those really high-end guys, those world place winners, the national team members. And I think that's where, if you're Mason Gibson, you got to work on that top game to really get to that elite status.
Yeah, and no, I totally agree with you. And he's only a freshman, but at this point, I remember Spencer used to always say 2 = 10. Because Spencer would always say, if I get the takedown, I'm winning because I'm going to turn you out of bounds. He says, I'll roll you until I'm off the mat. And his leg lace and his gut were just so good, right? Because 2 did equal 10 for him. He would only get a takedown and then roll people up. Mason can do that because he is very good at getting into people's legs. He's good on his go-behinds. He knows how to wrestle from his feet. Once he secures a go-to turn, whether that's a gut, whether that's a leg lace, he's going to be a different animal, right? He's a different type of wrestler. So I agree with you there. I watched a lot of his matches, but you're right. I don't think I saw a turn from top. So if anything, again, it's like you look at what he was able to do, and for that short memory to rebound and beat Cale Hughes to finish 3rd, I think just shows you how mature he is and how ready he is to really take on the best. And it was a tough weight class. 55 was a tough weight class because Cale Hughes then loses to Spencer Moore. Spencer Moore takes it out of 2 out of 3 in the final. So it was a deep weight class.
Yeah, it was, and it was a battle. I mean, Mason banged heads with
he was bandaged
Illinois
up the whole time.
Yeah, they both ended up, they were both bleeding. Cale Hughes in that 3rd place match had his head wrapped. Like, it was like the walking wounded at 55 in the consolation bracket there. Everybody was bandaged up and banged up, and that kind of shows you what kind of tournament it was. That that nobody's coming out of this tournament looking pretty. Everybody's got black eyes and bruises and all this stuff, and that's kind of what you see out of the NCAA tournament and the really elite competitions, and that kind of is what you saw out of Cadet Nationals as well.
Yeah, no one's leaving with like a pretty face, like you said. It's not something that happens at this level. If you go up to 60 kilograms, Pennsylvania had 2 wrestlers I thought could make some noise. ended up not getting on the podium. Tyler Kasak of Becca, he goes 4-2, losing in the blood rounds to Dylan Gilker from Michigan. I was expecting him to kind of be in the mix, which, again, 60 was a pretty deep weight class. But you also had Mac Church. Mac Church had a tough draw here in the tournament, because if you look at where he was in the bracket, he was always at the bottom, and he had Jace Roller, and Church loses to him 3-2, and then loses to Grayson Clark from Askren Wrestling Academy 5-4. So it's hard to believe that Mac went 0-2 as a state champ from PA, but Jace Roller's pretty good, and Grayson Clark's not bad either. So, it just kind of luck of the draw there, because Jace Roller ends up taking 5th. Grayson Clark takes 7th. So, he kind of was in that mix.
Yeah, tough whenever you get 2 medalists in a bracket right away like that, and both of those, as you said, were 1-point matches. So it's not like he's far off of that. You could easily see him being on a podium there. Just didn't work out this time.
One non-Pennsylvania wrestler that I became a huge fan of this weekend was Meyer Shapiro from Maryland. Meyer Shapiro from Maryland, 65 kilograms. The kid is an animal. Oh my gosh, he is fun to watch. He was a lot of fun to watch. And shout out Jude Swisher, because Jude, Shapiro just he had everything. He there was no answers that Jude had for him. Jude loses to him 10-0 in the second period. Shapiro just absolutely dominated. Very impressed with him, even though he's not a Pennsylvania guy. Jude Swisher, I thought he had a good tournament. He comes back to take 5th, beats Kale Vonovich from Ohio, and loses to Angelo Ferrari. Again, another Ferrari brother here. So not a bad showing for Jude. And remember, Jude's a senior. He's a young senior, right? He probably could have been a junior this year, but he's a younger guy for his grade, and I was impressed with him, but really impressed with Shapiro.
Yeah, Shapiro was kind of one of those guys that, to me, the really the talk of the freestyle tournament was Bo, was Shapiro, was Jessaroga. I mean, those guys are rightly so the guys that everybody's kind of been talking about coming out of the cadet national team trials.
Pearson Manville of State College, he took 7th at 65 kilograms, also lost to Ferrari.
Not a bad little District 6 showing there, huh? Whenever you get 2 guys in the top 8 at 65.
Not bad at all. Let's go up to 71 kilograms, where you had a lot of Pennsylvania wrestlers here. So Grant McKay loses to Antrell Taylor 13-3, then wrestles back and wins 5 matches to make it into the top 8. So very impressive by Grant McKay, state champion from Laurel. Holden Garcia also lost to Antrell Taylor from Notre Dame Green Pond. He does not make it to the top 8. The ones here we were watching here was obviously Levi Haynes. So Levi Haynes, he was pushed. He was pushed in quite a few of these matches here.
There were like 6 different endings. It was like you're too young probably, but when I was a kid, they used to have choose your own ending books.
I remember those books.
Yeah, you flip to like page 32 and you get one adventure, and you go the other way. That's the way the Levi Haynes matches were. It was like whatever you want to happen, it probably was ruled that way at one point, and then they overturned it and the other guy won.
So I do remember those books, Eric. I guess I'm not that young, but I appreciate you saying that. And I honestly feel that way, because there were so many matches where I'm like, what the heck is going on here? I don't get it. So let's talk about his road. Gets a tech fall in 31 seconds in the first match. Second match wins by fall in 1 minute 34. Next one, 11-0 and 2:24. Enzo Merlocki, he wrestled in the quarterfinals. I thought Enzo looked good against him. Enzo got the first takedown on Levi. Enzo, of course, from Kiski area. He's headed to Lehigh. But then in the finals against Joseph Seeley, it was a weird match, man. 2-0, then 2-1, then 3-2.
No, that was Riggins. Riggins was the finals.
No, I meant going into
the challenge.
Well, it's not really a challenge. You're right. It's a semifinals, right? The semifinals is what it is. 6-6 on criteria. he gets a push out with 1 second left and he ends up winning. I'm like, what just happened here? I mean, that match was insane. I think we tweeted it out, like, what is happening? Because it was really confusing to try to figure out how they were going to end it.
Well, and then the real confusion started because a little background. Last week, Jeff told me that basically I needed 4 guys or like 3 guys or 2 and 2.
I said 3. I said 3 total. I said 3.
Yeah,
but I meant 3 in freestyle. So
yeah. So basically, my trip to Budapest was riding on Levi Haynes.
Yes, and Levi Haynes delivered,
he gave me a roller coaster ride of a lifetime there. Because it was just that second match especially.
Yeah, I mean, so let's talk about that in the best of 3 finals. So, he comes out and wins 12-2 in that first match. So Riggins is actually up 2-0 after that first period in the best of 3 finals. Then Levi Haynes gets a couple takedowns and some turns to win it 12-2, ends the match in 3 minutes and 44 seconds. Okay, you're 1 match away from going to Budapest, and then all hell broke loose in that second match.
He pinned him once, and then I didn't understand how they called that one at all. They're like,
they were out of bounds. They were so out of bounds, and I'm like, why did you call that
right.
fall? Like, how did you?
That doesn't count.
I mean, it reminds me of like Ian Edenfield. Yeah, Ian Edenfield from Lower Highlands. He pinned somebody in the state semifinals. But they were out of bounds and they took it back and of course he ends up losing that match. And then what was the ending on this one too? I know that was even crazier where they gave Haynes an exposure. They gave him the 2, which wasn't the right call. As much as I wanted it to be, it wasn't the right call. Riggins should have had the call, and they had Haynes winning. So he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm on the world team." Wait, nope, not yet. Nope. Hold on, slow down. And then Riggins ends up winning that match because he had the 4. So Levi Haynes got the last takedown, but Riggins had the 4. So on criteria, he ended up winning that match. If you have a chance, go back and watch that match because it was probably a 15-minute match just because of all the challenges. David Taylor throwing out bricks. Be like, wait, why do we like freestyle so much? Because it's too darn confusing. Well, and I said that, and I said that's part of the reason why we're not getting as many folks. I don't know, because there is a whole heck of a lot of confusion around that. It's all gray area. It is. There's a lot of gray area. I admit that. Levi Haynes then puts a cherry on top because this time it counts. He gets the fall. He goes up in the first period. He was up 8-4. Riggins did get that 4 at the end. I was feeling great. I'm like, all right, it was 8-0, right? I'm thinking, yeah, we're gonna cruise takedown and we're done. Book your flight. The bag. Yep. And then there was a 4. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm getting a little nervous now. I'm like looking at flights to Budapest as it's 8-0. I specifically did not do it. I'm like, I'm not jinxing it. I will not look until this match is over. Well, so it's a good thing Levi, thank you very much. So he ends up giving up the 4, but then comes back and gets 2 and then the fall. So great job for Levi. Up at 71 kilograms, very impressive with him. Riggins is tough. I know it's an Iowa guy, but he was tough. He gave Levi Haynes everything he could handle. But he found a way. He gutted it out. So and thanks to him, Eric, you're going to Budapest. Yes, as long as we get a credential. Which we will. I haven't pissed off anybody from USA Wrestling, I don't think. So yeah, we should be good. All right. 80 kilograms. No one from Pennsylvania other than we'll kind of steal him is Gabe Arnold. I know he was upset with the way he wrestled, but he'll be back. 92 kilograms. We had also Nicholas Pavlichenko from State College, who took 8th. Isn't it Pavlechko? You always want to go Pavlichenko, or I think you're adding syllables in there. I always add syllables. I don't. What is it, Eric? Pavlichenko? I would say Pavlechko. Pavlecho. Okay, Pavlecho. Is it Russian? It's probably Russian. I'll go. Yeah. And 110 we didn't have anybody. So overall, though, not too shabby for PA. I would have obviously liked to see another wrestler on the world team for freestyle, but hey, we'll take it. I did say 3. I'm a man of my word. Even though in my mind, I thought it was 3 freestyle wrestlers.
Why you gotta hate on Greco, Jeff?
I don't hate Greco. It's just
I'm
Kaden
just
Williams,
messing
you're my
with you.
boy. I'm excited for you.
I try to appreciate Greco, but and it was a lot. It's a lot easier to appreciate Greco at this level than it is in the Olympics, where it's a lot of battling for position and not a lot of points. And I mean, this Greco was a lot more fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, when Bo Bassett's wrestling Greco,
He's just snapping guys down and
right. It's fun, right?
Trap arm gutting them, and
so I can get behind that. Kaden Williams,
yeah.
I'm gonna listen. I'm all Team Greco when Kaden Williams and Bo Bassett are wrestling it, no doubt about it. So let's make sure that's clear. But yeah, we're excited for Budapest. We're excited for the World Team Championships. We are 13 minutes over our power hour, Eric. So we went a little bit long here.
We had a lot of wrestling to talk about.
We did, and we've got a lot more to come here because we've got competition going on in Iowa this weekend. We've got national preps, so we are going to have another fun-filled weekend here all across the United States, and of course we have Wranglemania coming up on the 8th. We also have a special announcement coming up on the 9th on Mother's Day. We're going to have some pretty good wrestling highlighted there. I won't.
Are we going to have Mother's wrestling?
No, we're not going to. But although that would be pretty cool. Joey Fisher's mom could wrestle Rachel.
Joey Fisher's mom, yeah, she is rivaling Rachel as our top fan. Like she's all over the podcast. Right. Yeah,
maybe they should wrestle. Maybe it's something we can get on our next card. We're gonna have a lot of good wrestling this weekend, so stay tuned to PA Power Wrestling. Again, follow us on Twitter at PA Power Wrestle, Facebook, follow us at PA Power Wrestling, Instagram, all that fun stuff. We don't have a TikTok. I don't have TikTok. I bet you have TikTok, Eric.
I do. Well, I actually had a TikTok for me and a TikTok for work, but when I combined the phones, it got too confusing. So now I just have a TikTok for work.
Okay. We don't have one of those. So you can't find, I say you can find PA Power Wrestling on everything, but you ain't going to find it on TikTok. I don't get that.
He's a dad now. He ain't got time for that.
I ain't got time. I wear my socks high. I tuck in my shirt. I always tuck in my shirt everywhere I go anyway. So that's never changed, but
you got the socks and sandals going
summer. Yes, sir. Eric, I appreciate it. Hey, by the way, how you been golfing? You been golfing okay? You've been hitting the links recently.
I'm the worst golfer, and that pretty much applies to anyone who knows me. Like I'm probably worse than anybody but I'm getting better.
Okay. It's all about improvement, Eric. It's all about, again, there's battles within that match. Just like golf. Yeah. You're going to have a whole.
I'm not worried about the score.
No.
I want to hit the ball well, and I'm getting better at it. When I started, I'd have, 10 really bad shots around, and now I'm down to 6 really bad shots around. So it's getting better.
I remember when I started golfing in like high school, I would judge it on how many balls I lost. So like if I lost 20, and then the next time I went out and lost 15, I'm like, win from Jeff. That's to me, my handicap just went down 5, right? So now
you thought your handicap was how many balls you lost per round.
I did until I was told by a golf pro. He's like, no, that's not how it works. So that's so
you're like, yeah, I'm
stick
down
to it, Eric.
3 handicap.
Going. Right, keep going. So yeah, keep hitting the links, and we look forward to checking back in on your golf progress after this good weekend of wrestling. So we will talk to you very soon. Thanks for everyone who's listening in tonight. Sorry we went a little bit long. And as always, Pennsylvania wrestling fans, keep it classy. We'll talk to you real soon.